Last night, Zoran Mamdani won New York City's mayoral election, upending decades of cronyism, corruption by billionaires, and an out-of-touch Democratic establishment. He faced stiff headwinds from big money, but managed to pull off a populist campaign funded primarily by small-dollar donations. Now, as a democratic socialist, his policies aim to raise taxes on the richest citizens to pay for social programs and affordable housing in the most unaffordable city in America. Now, whatever you think about Mamdani's policies, whether he's too inexperienced or if his ideas are too far-fetched to be achievable, or if he really is a savior of the city's woes, well, his election was about more than his platform. It was a referendum on Trump and the entire MAGA movement. This year's election across the country saw Democratic wins in 2 gubernatorial races and thousands of small races across the country. Voters approved California's redistricting plan and passed foundational bond measures here in my home city of Denver. This all happened during a government shutdown where air traffic controllers are going without pay and, I guess, endangering the lives of anyone who flies. Because you remember Trump started his whole presidential life with just a bunch of crashes. And now the FAA isn't paying those air traffic controllers because of his shutdown. There's also the revocation of food aid for starving Americans, actions that the vast majority of Americans attribute to Republican misgovernance. And by Republican misgovernance, we're talking about Trump's misgovernance. In response, Trump doubled down, as he always does. He declared that he would defy judicial orders and restart He declared that he would defy judicial orders to restart the SNAP programs and demanded that the Supreme Court keep his economically disastrous tariffs in place. And we will see how the court rules on that in a few days. By and large, Americans are not happy with their decision to elect Trump in 2025. They are tired of the overt corruption and the grifts to the nation's billionaire class. They are tired of seeing their government institutions scrapped, their healthcare premiums skyrocket, and the public health system itself dismantled. In democracies, political leadership often follows these pendulous movements, power flips between liberal and conservative leaders every few terms, keeping the overall tenor of the system reasonably stable, at least in theory. But just like with the physics of pendulums, the political pendulum's motion responds to the overall energy in that system. Donald Trump has pushed the American fulcrum so far in the direction of MAGA policies that the correction that is coming will move with an equal and opposite inevitable force. When Americans elected Trump to office, they rallied to his banner because they wanted change. He offered to burn down the country in order to save it. He sold the belief that his aptitude in business and deal-making would be ultimately more profitable than the institutions that America had built up over generations. But in just 11 months, he has more or less succeeded in his promise of gutting most of the services and scrapping the international goodwill that citizens of this country have taken for granted. But he never had a plan to put anything else in place other than his own greed. And this is why Mamdani and the Democratic sweep in 2025 are so important. Now, I know these elections were like small. They were not even midterms. They were midterms. This is the very first sign that we have of what might be coming down the line. And it's potentially huge. Because if Trump is the most transparently corrupt president in history, and his actions have permanently exposed the flaws in the constitutional order and dismantled our institutions and locked in the Supreme Court to, I guess, corruption, then America, we have the opportunity to rebuild something new and different out of those ashes. We are never going back to the system as it used to be. We won't be able to wind back the clock to a pre-Trump era. And that, it's probably okay. Well, Obama was a perfectly fine president, I guess, overall. He was still backed by billionaires. His signature legislation, the Affordable Care Act, created a system of healthcare that somehow made it more profitable to be a healthcare insurer than ever before, while also delivering worse and worse healthcare outcomes for ordinary Americans. I mean, it did expand coverage for a lot of people. That was his gift, but everything else seemed to end up in favor of the healthcare companies. And also there was the housing crisis. Obama decided to bail out the banks and left millions of ordinary taxpayers holding the bag. Those actions in 2007 to 2015, they disillusioned millions of Democratic voters who thought that, mistakenly, thought that Democrats were supposed to be the home of the progressive left, a party for the people that had built its reputation in the massive social programs of Franklin Delano Roosevelt. But they were wrong. Obama proved that both the Democrats and the Republicans were the parties of billionaires and for the billionaires. Those of us who voted for Hillary and Biden and Harris did so because the Democrats were still a slightly better option than the Republicans. But we always knew that it was a defensive stance, a rearguard action, and not a play to make America truly something better. Under Trump, that old hope, it's dead. We lost our retreat and we're routed into the hinterland. So the only option is to come back harder. The future won't be decrepit leaders like Chuck Schumer leading a failing minority party in Congress. It will be people like Mamdani who embrace a real vision for change. The pendulum is going the other way. And frankly, this is the beauty of Trump, right? This is the beauty of the fact that he was such a bad leader, that the energy is in the system and we want to make it better. And that's all that I have written right now. I'd love to talk to you down in the comments because this is the first live that I've done in a long time. And let's see what you're saying down below. Oh, we have people agreeing with me. Corruption has been normalized. It's really hard to rewind, says Jerusalem Artichoke. Wealth is addictive. Rich will eventually destroy society. And for narcissists, money will never be enough, so it leads to peril. Here's the thing. We have a government that is corrupt. We have a government that has gone in the wrong direction for a long time. And we knew, but when I went to college, I went to college in 96 to 2000, Democratic years. And I'm generally a liberal guy, but I knew that the government was in the pocket of big industries. I knew that there were just so many problems with it, but I was always voting generally in favor of not making it worse. Well, once you have gotten to the point where it is as bad as it can be, that's where the hope is, right? We have gotten to the point where if it gets worse, it's like Nazi, like we're 1938 Germany. If it goes that bad, then you have to do war, I guess. But we're not there. And if the system holds, right? If we're able to, if voting actually works and elections aren't rigged, and interestingly, last night it doesn't look like a Republican sweep had happened and the elections were hacked nefariously. So that's good. That means that looks like voting actually occurred, which is good. So maybe we should have faith in the system. Maybe some of my faith has been, a little bit of my faith has been restored in the system. Of course, the other side is that perhaps they just didn't bother rigging this election so they could rig another one. Louise Farrington said, New York is done. Trump is awesome. Is this guy serious? New York elected Mamdani. Trump is not awesome. And yes, I'm serious. Those were your questions. I answered your questions. Yeah. Oh, she's in the wrong loony bin. All right. I think that's what I have to say for today. Let's keep this a short live, but tell me in the comments if you'd like to do these again. I can schedule them in advance, and then we can chat. We can chat stream. I appreciate all of you being here, even if there are potentially Russian bots in the stream or just Looney Tune people. What's the difference between a bot and someone who just has bought into all of the propaganda that they just talk like a bot? Discuss. Thanks, everyone.